I've been watching professional wrestling now for 22 years, and I can say with extreme certainty that this may have just been the most consistently good year from beginning to end when it comes to WWE premium live events. In most years, there's a stretch of just absolute stinkers, but not this year. For the most part, these shows were excellent. And more often than not, these great shows were anchored and spearheaded by a fantastic main event, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. Because today, we're going to be grading every single premium live event main event for 2023. We'll give them a letter grade like in school, so from A all the way down to F. Hey, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we upload daily wrestling content. And if you want even more wrestling content, come check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap, where I just reviewed the most recent episode of SmackDown where AJ Styles returned and turned heel. One quick side note before we start. Yesterday, I uploaded a video tier ranking the returns in WWE in 2023. And of course, AJ Styles comes back literally 2 hours after I upload that video. So the AJ Styles return and heel turn was fantastic. I'll just say that. Okay, now let's jump into it. The year started off strong with the Royal Rumble, which was main evented by Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, back when Roman Reigns was still carrying two separate titles. And I'm going to be honest with you, the match is actually quite boring. It's not that great. It's actually very long, very drawn out, and one of Roman Reigns' more uneventful main event matches that I've seen throughout the entire year. But to be honest, when I'm saying main event, I don't just mean the match. I mean the entire main event sequence, the entire main event segment, and this also had the fantastic execution of poor Sami Zayn, who instead of attacking Kevin Owens, decided to turn his back on the Bloodline and hit Roman Reigns in the back with a chair, which then led to the beatdown of Sami Zayn and the beatdown of Kevin Owens. It was beautiful. It was emotional. It was awful. It was everything that wrestling needs to be. It was such a fantastic segment, even if the match itself was fairly lackluster, which I genuinely believe that it was. And that's the beauty of wrestling. It's not just about what happens in the ring. It's about all of the other narrative threads that happen before and after it. And when it comes to the main event, that massive narrative thread involving the Bloodline, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens was part of the main event as far as I'm concerned. And it changed the landscape of professional wrestling in the WWE right through past WrestleMania. So it was a very important moment in the landscape of wrestling, in the timeline of the Bloodline. It was so good. So even though the match didn't necessarily deliver, I think that the entire main event segment was fantastic. So what I'll do is I'll give it an A- where it loses points because of the actual match itself. Next up, we have NXT Vengeance Day, which was main evented by Braun Breaker versus Grayson Waller in a steel cage match for the NXT Championship. And weirdly enough, on paper, this sounds like it'd be really good, but when it comes to Vengeance Day, I think that this was actually one of the weaker matches on the show. I think that the cage gimmick was very limiting in terms of what these two were capable of doing. And not only was it limiting, they didn't really actually use the cage enough as a prop, as a weapon, as a storytelling device. So overall, I was just kind of watching a regular wrestling match with an obstructed view because the cage was in the way. That's what it ultimately felt like. I thought it was not fantastic. I thought what we did get in the ring was quite good. Grayson Waller's a great character worker. Braun Breaker's a badass. But I can't get any higher than a B today. Next up, we have the main event of the Elimination Chamber in Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship in Sami Zayn's hometown of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So you know that this crowd was crazy. And I am a big believer that the crowd can truly impact how good a show is, how good a match is, how good a segment is. And they really helped elevate this match, even though the match itself was already fantastic. Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns had fantastic chemistry both in the ring and emotionally. The crowd was super behind Sami Zayn. Lots of incredibly close calls with Sami Zayn almost winning. We had a fairly unique ending sequence where it wasn't just the Bloodline helping Roman Reigns win. I liked how that turned out with Jay Uso coming out and you don't know where his allegiances were gonna lie. I thought it was one of the more unique finishes to a Roman Reigns match instead of just like Bloodline comes out, attacks Sami. That's it. It wasn't that. It was more than just that. But again, this international crowd that also happened to be a home crowd for Sami Zayn really elevated this match. This is one of Roman Reigns' most entertaining main event matches, if I have to say. I'm going to give this an A. Next up, we have the main event of NXT Stand and Deliver, which was main evented by Braun Breaker versus Carmelo Hayes. They would go on to have a much better match, but this would be a nice prelude to that. This was okay. Their chemistry wasn't quite there yet, but at least we got the result that a lot of us were wanting for, which was for Carmelo Hayes to finally be able to win the big one. The crowd was hot, choreography was pretty good, there were a ton of good close calls. Carmelo Hayes and Braun Breaker are just money athletes, they're just so good, but again, they would go on to have a much better match down the line. However, still pretty good. It's going to get a B+. Next up, we have the night one main event of WrestleMania 39, main evented by the WWE Undisputed Tag Champions, the Usos, defending against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Again, at this point, the Bloodline storyline is like the most important thing going on in professional wrestling, and to me, this so far is the climax of the Bloodline storyline. Even though it didn't involve Roman Reigns, it still involved all of the right characters and the most important characters when it comes to the inner workings of the Bloodline in the Usos and Sami Zayn. But in my opinion, this may have been the best match of all of WrestleMania and is in contention for the best match of the year. This was incredible. And this had to follow up one of the most incredible women's matches that I've ever seen in Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. And not only did it follow it up, but it was better than that. This match was fantastic. Yes, the match was good. Yes, the character work was fantastic. Yes, it was emotional. Yes, the crowd was hot, but I have to give props to the commentary team. This commentary team was on another level helping get this match over. This is one of my favorite matches of the year. If you have to rewatch one match from WrestleMania 39, you can't watch anything else, this is the one that you have to rewatch. This, fellas, gets an A++. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes felt special in a different kind of way. It was special because this was the culmination of Cody's story and he was facing the ultimate final boss. But it was lacking the luster of the incredible Bloodline storyline leading into it, a Bloodline storyline that was main evented in night one as opposed to main evented here with Roman Reigns. And I feel like that kind of took away a little bit of the shine of this match because the night one main event was, to me, the climax of the Bloodline storyline so far. But still, a lot of people were behind Cody. A lot of people were confident that Cody was going to walk away with the championship. I, for the one, thought that Roman was going to retain because I just felt that there was just too much story left to tell with the Bloodline storyline, and I ended up being correct. However, entrances were immaculate. Absolutely incredible. Roman's entrance is up there with one of the best WrestleMania entrances that I've ever seen. Crowd was hot, in-ring work was fantastic. Commentary work was great. However, it just got way too overbooked at the end with like 6 different people getting involved. We had Sami Zayn getting involved, Kevin Owens getting involved, Solo getting involved, Jimmy getting involved, Jay getting involved. We even had Paul Heyman getting involved. It just got too convoluted at the end, and I think it took away from the fact that this match was actually quite good on paper on its own without the involvement of everyone around it. And I felt a little bit upset that all of those pieces got involved in this match because it felt like those pieces weren't even really part of the narrative of this match because this wasn't a Bloodline storyline match. This was Cody's story. So I didn't think that those pieces at the end were necessary, and it just really took away from everything that these two did in the ring. Still, great match. Can't go higher than a B+ though. Look, I'm going to be super harsh on this, and I'm going to be real quick and to the point. Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar at Backlash is not horrible, okay? It's 9 minutes. It's bloody. It's not that good. Like on paper, I might have given this like a C-, maybe a C. However, this shouldn't have main evented. This was the wrong match to main event. It should have been Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest. This match had no need being in the main event. It was the wrong choice, and pretty much for that alone, F. The main event of Night of Champions was pretty good. However, this would start a concerning narrative of Roman Reigns not defending his championship at a premium live event. It was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defending their undisputed WWE Tag Team titles against Solo Sikoa and the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. So at this point, Bloodline main events are a tale of two halves. It's what happens in the ring and then the overbooked nature of it, okay? Because it's always going to be overbooked at the end with people getting involved. So to me, it's about like that ending sequence. Did it ruin the match or no? And this was a situation where it absolutely didn't. The match was quite good. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the WrestleMania Night 1 main event between Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and the Usos, but it was serviceable. It did the job. It was entertaining. However, the sequence at the end was what was magical, with the Usos accidentally coming out and super kicking Solo Sikoa, which led to them being berated by Roman Reigns, being pushed around, only for Jimmy to finally snap and super kick Roman Reigns and kick off the Bloodline Civil War. Again, that sequence was awesome, fantastic. Match was fine. It didn't blow me away, but the entire showcase of the main event I thought was fantastic. We're going to give this an A. This is the much better Carmelo Hayes versus Braun Breaker match at NXT Battleground, and like an idiot, for some reason I decided to watch AEW Double or Nothing instead of Battleground because they were on the same night, and I definitely should have been watching NXT Battleground because it was a much better show, main evented by a fantastic set of youngsters that absolutely knocked our socks off with a wonderful main event. This is when their chemistry is at an all-time high. Carmelo Hayes and Braun Breaker are just, oh my goodness, they're just like flowing water in the ocean, down in a river. I don't know what analogy to use here. They're just so smooth is what I'm trying to say. This is a wonderful main event, really cool spots. I like the involvement of Trick Williams, and I like how Carmelo Hayes had to literally hit Braun Breaker with everything, including the kitchen sink, to win this. I think that this is a wonderful main event. It gets an A-. To me, the Bloodline Civil War main event is like the last bastion of fantastic Bloodline storytelling, because I think it's really gone downhill since the Bloodline Civil War. But the main event was Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa taking on the Usos, Jay and Jimmy. I think to truly appreciate this main event, you also have to really understand just how good the buildup to this was. The storytelling on every episode of SmackDown leading into this was so good. The Usos and Jay super kicking Roman Reigns and saying, well, I'm out too. Boom. Setting up Bloodline Civil War was just so fantastic. And it's really important to understand the emotions heading into this match to truly understand how fantastic this match is from a storytelling perspective. In the ring, it is a great match. Again, as a tag team match, not as good as the WrestleMania Night 1 main event, because I think that's one of the greatest tag matches of all time, clearly, and I haven't been obvious about that. But this was a very good, serviceable main event tag team match. The crowd was super hot. It helps that they were in London, because London will get hot for just about any single match that you put out there, but they were especially extra hot for anything involving the Bloodline at the time. Highlight of this, of course, is Roman Reigns getting pinned, something that we hadn't seen in about 3 years. This is a fantastic main event with great storytelling, bunch of great, fun, close calls, and a great ending, and an awesome crowd, and a great commentary team. I'm going to give this an A. Carmelo Hayes versus Elia Dragonov at NXT The Great American Bash could have been amazing, but it wasn't, because it was a little bit too convoluted and too crazy there towards the end. The ending was a little ambiguous in terms of what happened, which led to a lot of questions, which took away from the actual in-ring narrative that they were telling. Again, all in my opinion. They would go on to have a better match at NXT No Mercy. We'll talk about that in just a second. However, this match was a good, precursor to things that were to come. I didn't like the finish with Trick Williams accidentally hitting Elia Dragonov over the head while Elia Dragonov was trying to hit Carmelo Hayes. It just got a little bit too crazy, and it took away from, like I said, what was actually happening in the ring. And I feel like it ended a little bit too early. Like the ending sequence happened when the match was finally starting to get good, in my opinion. So I'm going to be giving this one a B+ today. Roman Reigns versus Jay Uso is the most frustrating main event of the entire year. This was a main event that was sold to us as Tribal Combat. In Tribal Combat, that was explained to us as a match where no one can get involved. It's just these two in the ring to figure out who's going to be the tribal chief. No interference allowed. Well, what do you know? Solo Sikoa gets involved. Jimmy Uso gets involved. Again, we have another convoluted mess to end the Bloodline storyline, but at this point, we've seen this type of finish so many times that now we're getting sick and tired of it. On top of that, it didn't help that Jimmy turning on Jay, to this day, still colossally stupid, and they had no good reason for delivering that part of the storyline that quickly. It was slow, it was boring. The aspects of the match that got hardcore were cool, but again, when we sum all of it up and we involve the fact that half of the match was basically a 2-on-1 between Solo, Roman versus Jay, it's just frustrating. I remember watching this and just one, being bored, and two, being frustrated. It was just an annoying combination. Honestly, I gave this a D. I don't know why I didn't give it an F. I think maybe I think I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt and trying to be positive here. Fuck it. This is an F. Next up, we have the main event of Payback and Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Seth freaking Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think a lot of us were just excited to see Nakamura finally get an opportunity to main event, to see Nakamura maybe win a World Heavyweight Championship. So a lot of us walked into this with a high level of expectation. However, I came into this with a bit of trepidation. I was very, very cautious of the fact that I think that this match was not going to be as good as people were hoping, because Nakamura up to this point hadn't delivered a fantastic match on the main roster yet, and I don't think that they delivered a fantastic match here either. I think that the narrative of Seth Rollins' back was dumb, considering that Nakamura didn't work Seth Rollins' back in any way, shape, or form here. It just sort of felt like a regular match, even though, again, they told this giant narrative about Seth's back being broken. So from like that narrative point of view, like the narrative in-ring story that they were telling, it didn't really coincide with the narrative that they were telling leading up to this, which to me as a wrestling fan left me a little bit jarred and confused as to why those two things just didn't really match up. Still, it was a fine match. It was a good match, actually. It's just not to the level of what we would expect from somebody like a Seth Rollins, not to the level of what we would expect from the storyline leading into it, and it wasn't even close to being the best match of the night. So I'm just gonna cap this at a B. That's as high as I can go here. Next up, we have the main event of NXT No Mercy, one of the best shows of the year, which was main evented by Becky Lynch versus Tiffany Stratton in an Extreme Rules match. And this is a show where they had to follow up the fantastic Elia Dragonov versus Carmelo Hayes too. And these ladies absolutely delivered. This was the best match of the night, in my opinion. It was nasty, it was brutal, it was chaotic, and it was a star-making night for Tiffany Stratton, and it demonstrated to the world the versatility of a worker that is Becky Lynch. She is so good at her craft and at her job. Look, this is one of the best women's matches of the year, and you have to go back and rewatch this, because I know a lot of you missed this, because not everyone watches NXT, but it is absolutely worth your time to go back and find Becky Lynch versus Tiffany Stratton, because I think it's one of Becky Lynch's best matches ever. I thought that this was a fantastic main event, a great showcase of women's wrestling and how chaotic it can be. We're going to give this an A+. The main event of Fastlane was Seth freaking Rollins taking on Shinsuke Nakamura, and a lot of us felt like this match absolutely had to deliver after a lot of us felt like they didn't deliver at the previous month's Payback. Now, this match did add a very fun stipulation, a last man standing match, which did fit the narrative of the story that they were telling of Seth's back and him not being able to carry the championship anymore and not being able to stand on his own 2 feet to be there with his family. Finally, the match, the stipulation, and the story finally jived and gelled and made sense, which made this match so much more entertaining. This match had some wicked awesome spots. I know that there's like the dumb footage that surfaced of Seth Rollins falling on a crash mat. What did you expect? That Seth was actually going to fall from 2 stories on the concrete? Look, it didn't look that bad on TV, but yes, if you're going to film it from a weird angle where it's not supposed to be filmed from, then yeah, it's going to look silly. But so I'm not going to take away points from that just because that video went viral. I am going to give this points for all of the super brutal spots, like the table spots that we had. We had like 4. We had a fantastic ladder spot where Shinsuke Nakamura tossed Seth Rollins off the table. We had nunchucks. The only problem with this was the fact that Shinsuke did everything to Seth Rollins to keep him down. It was Seth Rollins that took the majority of the brutality. It was Seth Rollins that took the majority of the table spots, but Seth Rollins kept getting up a 9. And then Nakamura goes through one table. That's it. Seth Rollins wins. It was just a frustrating ending choreography to this that made Seth Rollins' story of his back just seem like utter bullshit. Still, I think that this was a fantastic main event. It was a tremendous amount of fun. A-. Roman Reigns versus LA Knight had a fantastic build-up into it. LA Knight felt special. LA Knight felt like he belonged. And to some, it felt like LA Knight might actually be the one to walk away with the championship from Roman Reigns. However, when we actually go into the match, this was one of the shorter Roman Reigns matches, and 2, the most Roman Reigns finish ever, which at this point is just becoming a meme with how frustrating Roman Reigns matches are finishing. This is the match where I just basically stood tall and said, we need to find a new way to finish Roman Reigns matches because this is getting annoying. The formula of Roman about to lose only for members of the bloodline to get involved to help Roman walk away with the championship is boring. It's lame, and it's been overdone at this point, and it was just incredibly predictable because that's exactly how this match would go on to finish. The match was fine. It wasn't anything special. If anything, what made this match was the fact that the crowd was super hot for LA Knight. Saudi Arabia just loves their megastar, I guess. But again, that ending sequence with Jimmy stopping the pin only for Roman to hit a couple of spears and then LA Knight loses, it was just, this is where the frustration for Roman Reigns, I understand it. I get it, and I'm with you. Even though I still acknowledge my tribal chief, I can't give this higher than a B. Survivor Series War Games is a bit of a weird one to rate because I don't know whether or not CM Punk is part of the main event segment because he wasn't part of this match in any way, shape, or form. He wasn't part of the narrative of this match in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to say that no. However, if I was just grading the CM Punk return, a quadruple plus. But I'm not going to include the CM Punk return in this sequence. I'm just going to include the match, Randy Orton's return. That's pretty much it because there wasn't really any post-match shenanigans involving any of these guys or involving the story of these guys. I've seen the War Game stipulation get a lot of hate from people. They think that it's a boring match type and that it doesn't get good until the very end. I would agree with the fact that maybe the consequences of the match don't matter until the very end, but I like the chaos. I like the car wreck. I like the cool things that happen in this match. I don't know if I'm in the minority on this one. I like the War Game stipulation personally. And yes, ultimately this match is going to be remembered as the return of Randy Orton. That's what people are going to remember this match for, not so much the outcome and not so much the spots, even though I do think that the spots were fantastic. Shout out to poor JD McDonough, who basically took all of the nastiest spots possible in this. I think every single one of these guys at some point or another looked fantastic individually. I thought overall, this was a great War Games match, if maybe not as good as the one from last year. But again, the return of Randy Orton. The crowd was absolutely electric, not just for the return of Randy. Yes, absolutely. They were excited and super electric for the return of Randy, but I think they were hot from basically beginning to end of this match. The only thing that I just don't love about this is the lack of consequences of who cares who wins. If you think about it, would things have changed had the Judgment Day won? Would things have changed? I don't think so. I think that we would have been routine. We would have gone on as usual. And I do think that that's problematic with a main event. When the consequences of the result don't matter the next day, I think it kind of takes away from it. So the return of Randy, the fact that this was a fun car wreck, and I do like what happened in the ring. However, I think I'm going to take away some points from the fact that there's just a lack of consequences when it comes to a match like this. I'll give it an A-. I'll be quick with this one. Ooh, voice crack. I'll be quick with this one. Elia Dragonov versus Baron Corbin and NXT Deadline was one of the weaker Elia Dragonov matches, but one of the stronger Baron Corbin matches. So like there's like this in between, but ultimately I was left a little bit disappointed, mostly because the narrative that they were telling going into this match was so good, but then the match was pretty mediocre. And I think one of the reasons why this match was mediocre was because Elia Dragonov was grounded for the majority of this match, and Elia Dragonov is at his best when he's doing Elia Dragonov things, but for the most part, Baron Corbin held him down for the majority of this match and was mostly winning the entirety of the match as well. So if Elia Dragonov is being held in rest holds and submissions and is being knocked down on the ground for the majority of this match, we lose what makes Elia Dragonov matches special, which is Elia Dragonov doing Elia Dragonov things. I hope that they have another match in the future, because I do think that they could do something special together, but this was pretty weak. I'm gonna give this a C. All right, folks, that's my grading for the main events of the year. You let me know what I got wrong. Tell me in the comments, was I too harsh on something? I might have been a little too harsh on Cody versus Brock Lesnar. Okay, I admit I might have been a little bit too harsh there. Anyways, that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.